Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS Slate breakdown. Before we get into the breakdown for this UCL quarterfinal slate, I just want to take a quick second here just to shout out the FSI Discord and website, which can be accessed in the link below, or the Discord can be accessed through the website link in the description below. And I'm just going to toot my horn a little bit. I just had a crazy day today, and I just want to just talk about it a little bit and say what FSI does. Like I do a three-man core for all of these slates here, and I just had a crazy, crazy showdown slate here where I played a bunch of these guys I talked about in my core. If you're a member, like I had um in my main this is my main cash team. I had Alanga, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Townsend. Or no, it was Ben Johnson as the core plays. I like Townsend a lot too, and I took him out of core for Ben Johnson. They both did fine, really. And I just really killed this slate and just all guys. That's really makes me excited that I was able to do that with guys I talked about and really get after it with the things I kind of preach in these videos too, targeting core plays or targeting making set piece takers with floor core plays and just really going after what makes DFS so good is just chasing that floor, or DFS soccer so good is chasing that floor and going after like these 4 points and then supplementing that with your upside plays as well. And just yeah, I just was super excited today, and make sure to check out the FSI Discord link below. But yeah, that'll be it there. Let's just go into the slate breakdown. We have a three-game Champions League quarterfinals. Like I said, these are the first legs. Biggest favorite is Dortmund, of course. Atleti and Real Madrid and Arsenal are not far behind it, like minus 100-ish too. So not a ton in it. In terms of projected lineups and set pieces for Real Madrid, it should be Luka Modric monopoly in this team. There's a chance that he doesn't start though, just because he's got a lot of legs under him. Last couple of games, he went 90 in the league, which was interesting. However, they are missing Ceballos and Bellingham, so that's the reason why he might start, just because they've only got so many guys to play that midfield position. And if he doesn't play, it should be Rodrigo sets. For Atletico Madrid, it should be mostly Griezmann, maybe De Paul or Lina or Alvarez split. Alvarez probably the most likely there. Dortmund and Leo should be either Gross or Rierson. I don't really have a lean either way which one it'll be. Rierson missed last game with like I think a flu bug, which led to Gross sets. But before then, Rierson had a few. Gross took a few too, I think, in the same game. So who really knows? For Leo, it should be Haraldson and Bakker splitting, unless Cabela plays, in which case he'd be the one splitting with Bakker most likely. Although Haraldson, even then, could still end up taking something because there's just not a really set routine there. For PSV and Arsenal, it should be mostly Bierman, like practically a monopoly. You might see like Perisic or maybe even Noah Lang take like one just super one off, but it's mostly Bierman. And then for Arsenal, Rice will take one side. And then it's a little bit up in the air whether we get an Odegaard or Nwaneri split. It was Odegaard in the league. Of course, they failed to score against Nottingham Forest, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just changed up sets because of that. But it would like they could also just keep the same too. Like there's just no real way to know who will end up doing what that game. If you want to go for recency, it'd be Odegaard, but who knows? All right, pricing. Mbappe, 10K. That is super expensive. Or that's not that bad, I mean. Like he's most expensive on this slate, but 10K doesn't feel bad at all, considering he's been 12 in the past. And with a pretty favorable matchup against Atleti, we've seen Atleti have games where it's like 4-4, 4-3, like against Barcelona in the Copa del Rey, I think it was like 5-5, 5-4 or something, or 4-4 maybe. And I could definitely see this game being like that if there's an early goal, especially. On the other hand, you could see Atleti play true Simeone ball, go like 9 men behind the ball, try to park the bus, get a result because it is an away game. So it really just depends how early that first goal comes in. Either way, I'm likely getting to Mbappe in my main builds just because he's been just so hot. He's gotten a goal contribution in 4 of his last 5. Even the game he didn't have one, he still had 11 in 4, which I know you don't really want for 10K, but it's just a little bit of defense, like just knowing that his worst case scenario is really a 10. which doesn't really kill you in cash. Like you take a 10 pointer for most positions, just it's not ideal that it'd be from a 10K guy. And I think he's just more likely to get goal contribution than not anyway. Vinny Jr., second to Mbappe, not been as prolific, but still been very solid. A little bit of a price discount too. So I don't mind him. He's definitely a candidate for playing as your second forward in cash games. Just I'd start around Mbappe, likely. Then Girassi, this is the same thing like Vinny. Like this is another guy who I'd pair with Mbappe here. Been super solid typically. I know he got subbed against Sporting, but I think he'll go 90 here likely, especially at home against a Lille team who've just not been great. Just got pummeled by PSG. Like PSG's B team at that in the league too. I know like it was mostly Lille backups, but even then they're just not a team playing great right now. And Girassi's just been super hot in UCL, been great in the league as well. So once again, like I'm super tempted by that, whether I go him or Vinny Jr. as my second forward, or even like a Rodrigo if there's no Modric. It's a tough decision here. Yeah, like I said, Rodrigo, excuse me. I definitely like here. If there's no Modric, should have sets in that case, and that'd make him super appealing. Otherwise, I don't know if I love him too much. If Modric plays, I'd more likely to get to a Vinny or a Girassi over him. Griezmann, I just don't love here in cash just because Atleti are going to play on the counter likely. They've been not afraid to sub Griezmann either in these games. And yeah, like I said, I just don't really see him having like a 10, 15 point floor game against a Real. I could see him maybe getting a goal contribution to be worth it, but he's also less likely to do that than your Girassis, your Vinny's, and your Mbappe's. But he's an okay GPP play for sure. I could see a game stripped 4-4 game like we just talked about here. Play Griezmann, play Vinny, maybe even play Mbappe all in one build. Hope that game ends up like, yeah, 4-4, like I said. Hope for goals. And that could be a little interesting idea right there for a GPP build. Julian Alvarez, similarly priced to Griezmann. He's kind of like a similar play. He won't get you a ton of minutes, but he usually is typically solid in those minutes. But once again, just don't expect those numbers against Real Madrid and a decent GPP play. Noah Lang, 7K, I don't think is awful. Perisic, I like a lot at 6,800. Those logs are also insane, averaging like 24 points a game in those two Juve matches. The issue here is that similarly to Atleti, they are playing Arsenal. They're a lot likely to have less of the ball. And Arsenal's games have just been so, I don't want to say boring, but pretty cagey. Not a ton of goals typically. I just don't really see this game opening up as much as you could maybe see the Dortmund or Real Madrid games. But saying that, if those games end up being cagey, like 1-1s across the board, Perisic could definitely be one of the better floor plays here. And at 6,800, that's not a crazy play. But like I said, in GPP or in cash, I'm sorry, I'm more likely to target Girassi or Vinicius Jr. But that's a decent pivot there in Perisic if you can't get up to one of those guys for whatever reason, or just as a GPP guy that you get to instead. Arsenal are pretty cheap across the board here. We've gotten our first piece here in Trossard 6,700. I don't love it just because there will be cheaper Arsenal pieces that we will get to as we get into the mids, especially. But as a like budget forward, that's not an awful option. Same with Luke De Jong, sure, but I just wouldn't get to those guys in cash. Jonathan David is kind of intriguing too at 5K. That could be a little nice GPP play as well. Once again, I just probably wouldn't get there in cash, but I think there's an argument at 5K. Like that is your cheap forward option, really, like your true dumpster dive cheap forward option. Midfielders. Bierman 7,400 feels a little bit pricey to me. I don't love it, but I've been kind of on him almost every time he plays. Just good for a solid 10 to 15, which is kind of your dream kind of cash play. But 7,400 it just is expensive here compared to all the other mids. Gross, I just worry about Ryerson taking over him and just the limited upside there. I know he had that crazy game against Sporting, but I don't really see him getting many goal contributions like that often. So like he's in play probably, but I just don't love it at price range considering we've got guys like Odegaard, Rice, Noneri. These three in a row here, I would be more than likely playing one of these guys, maybe even two of them in my cash team. Hell, I could even go all three if I'm feeling super frisky. But like 6K for two set takers here, since one guy will probably take nothing. Rice is the guaranteed sets if going for that. Just the upside is limited there compared to the other two. But they're all just great plays for different reasons. Like Odegaard is here. If he takes, he's kind of the balance of upside and floor. Whereas your Noneri is a little more volatile, who if he takes is just a fantastic play. He's got like the best goal scoring odds on Arsenal. So he's a must have if he ends up taking. And otherwise, you're your volatile attacker. And then Rice, who is just your steady. This is probably who you prioritize in cash of the three, just because he will have set pieces. He doesn't go too low, doesn't go too high typically, which is just solid for 6K. So I like Rice here a lot. And the other two are still great plays as well. It's just kind of a debate over whether you think, whether you, of who you think has sets. Modric is 5,600. This is another super tempting cheap mid, and it's why I'm not high on Gross and Bierman too much, just because of the amount of midfielders they're missing, he probably goes 90, I want to say. Just because I don't really think they really want to sub. They don't really trust Brahim Diaz too much. I don't think started in the league game, got a goal. However, still subbed at like 59th minute. And Modric has been super good whenever he started. Like he's good for 15 typically. 7, that poor game against Milan, which I think is a bit of an outlier. But I put him on the same level as these Arsenal guys, and it just is a tough decision over what combo of these four mids you go. There's really an argument to be made for any of them. But everyone else, I think, is going to be overlooked a little bit, probably more GPP-ish, just because of the spots those other four are in. But like a Cabela is not bad if he plays. Marino is a GPP play, 5K if he starts at striker. Could be interesting. Haroldson at 4,500, cheap set piece taker. Like that's not a bad play at all either. So there's just a bunch of really interesting mids on this slate here. And they're all pretty cheap too, which really allow you to pay up at forward here. Defenders. It is not that stacked of a defender slate. They're expensive by any. Too expensive for me. Frank Garcia, same thing. Rierson, who I just get to like the same rationale I had last Dortmund UCL slate, where I just said I'm playing him just in case he takes. He ended up having like a monopoly, and I do the same thing here. Hope for set pieces. If not, he's just not that. A setless Rierson is still just comparable to the other defenders on the slate because there's no real big standout guy who I expect a ton of points from. So I'm getting to Rierson here just in case he takes. Like he's just a high upside, high floor play where you can't really go too wrong here. Like the worst case scenario, he's just a fallback on this slate when there's just no real great alternatives anyway. And then the other guy I'm super tempted by is so I'll just go player by player first. Like I'm not super interested in most of these guys. If like Lucas Vazquez starts at 4,800, I don't think that's terrible. Same with Timber. I don't think is awful. But the guy that I am prioritizing and having in most of my builds is Mitchell Bakker. He's projected to start as an attacker. They ended up subbing him at halftime last game, which makes me think that it's in preparation to this one. And look at that crazy game he had against Feyenoord. Like he's an upside defender just because he can get goal contributions because he's playing so high up and having set pieces. This is kind of just a no-brainer play for me at 3,500. Like he just makes the most sense here on a slate like this when there's just not a ton of defenders anyway. And then you add on top of that he's a cheap player in that conversation. Give me all the Bakker. Other guys I'm thinking about, just not a ton, just because, like I said, I'm prioritizing Bakker and Rierson where I can get to. But if not going that route, you do have your punts, like for Mendy, like Ledesma, like Rudiger, who I could see going as salary savers. And I don't mind them in that capacity if you don't want to go all the way up to like a Rierson for 5,700. If you want to think that Gross takes over him, think Rierson ends up setless, that would be the scenario where you maybe fade him and go for a cheaper punt and use that salary on your attackers. Goalkeeper, as always, it is a complete crapshoot. I say this every time. Just play whoever fits the rest of your build. Like, don't ever be afraid to punt goalkeeper, and just be content. Typically, if you end up on a expensive one, they can just keep a clean sheet and get there too. So yeah, just play whoever fits the rest of your build. In terms of a core, I've talked about it pretty much. Mbappe, I'm playing, and then you just go Bakker, Rierson, and I go from there and then really kind of think about who I'd go for mid and forward. There's a ton of great options at both those spots. And it'll just really come to the day and who you end up liking. I don't think there's a ton of edge in terms of which one. But yeah, guys, that'll be it. And I'll see you for the next one. Peace.